Welcome to the Generous Benefits Podcast. My name is Amanda Brummitt. I'm your host. Today, we are joined by one of my favorite guests, my husband, Bret Brummitt, founder of Generous Benefits. And we are talking about a salacious topic today. Essentially, how to sniff out if someone in your organization is taking a kickback, revenue share, any kind of shady financial arrangement that they're not disclosing. So with that, let's jump in. Hey, Bret.
Hey, lady.
How are you?
I'm good. Very good.
Good. Are you hyped up on coffee?
I am. You want to know why?
Yeah. Before we dive into the terrible topic we're going to talk about today, give us some good news about all the good people are doing in the world.
Fantastic. We've been over at Epoch Coffee for a coffee cup tasting. This is an invite from Dr. Chris Larson, one of our DPC doctors in town. It's an organization he works with that takes care of predominantly restaurant food service industry workers called Good Works Austin. They do a lot of support for the restaurant workers, making their lives healthier, and they, do such thing as pay restaurants to serve homeless and those experiencing homeless in our community too. So nice to support them, and the team over at Epoch was really cool to have a good cupping experience. And even someone like me that knows a little bit too much about coffee got to learn good new stuff.
We'll move on to the topic at hand. Bret, I have observed over the years, there are a lot of shady things that go on in the insurance industry. I just want to start with, how do you know as a HR person, as a CFO, if somebody, either external, a broker, a TPA, PBM, or internal, one of your teammates, has some kind of shady financial arrangement?
And by shady financial arrangement, you mean giving somebody a kickback for their business?
Yeah, I mean, in my industry, we call it a kickback, but I do feel like there are things in your industry that are legal and unethical.
Okay.
So I would call that shady.
That'd be true.
So let's start with the legal and unethical.
Can we actually start with the legal and ethical and actually makes good sense to start with as a baseline?
Yeah, you can start wherever you want.
So let's go through the scenario that I find to be the most common for monetary arrangements with an insurance agency. And that is that there is a client out there and that someone doesn't have the pure skill set to take care of them appropriately. 100%. They can probably do 20%, 15%, 10%, 50% of what the client needs.
And pause. That's not a bad thing, right? They know their scope, they know their strengths and weaknesses, and so they phone a friend when they need to.
Yeah, it's the good thing. And so they will bring in a co-broker arrangement. And there will be some kind of revenue share that is appropriate along the scope of work, the duration of the work, the intensity of the work, the knowledge. Maybe it's not intense, it's just simply knowledge and experience. They need someone along for the ride. Those are all things that I think are good, legal, and should be welcomed.
Okay. So not a referral fee. You're sharing the work, sharing the knowledge, sharing the brain trust.
Yeah, and you're sharing the client's best interest. Someone has this is a case for me often where I'm brought in because either I have a geographic knowledge, a product competency knowledge, a communications or a technology knowledge that is different than what someone has. And in those instances, we work on cases together in a collaborative model. And there is a revenue share because we're both working on it. Now, sometimes that revenue share is split from the carrier. Sometimes the client pays each individually in some kind of split. Sometimes for simplicity, it's paid to one firm and the other firm pays the other firm out. I mean, that's your most normal common scenarios.
Okay. So a rev share in and of itself is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all. And there are spots where it should be used.
That makes sense. What about, I once heard one side of a phone call where somebody called you after a benefits decision had been made, after open enrollment, called you and said,
I know where you're going.
And said, I have an insurance license. I want to cut. And you handled it with a lot of grace. But is that normal? Is that rare?
That is rare. That is
Okay, good.
weird. Like an employee, and this was, just called an employee of a client asking for a cut because they too could sell insurance and they want a kickback that's going to them, not to the company, not a reduction of cost, not going to overhelp the entire benefit plan. Like, hey, I could have made my introduction here and sold this myself, but I didn't. So, not a threat that I could replace you if you don't pay me, but depending on how you read those conversations, it's real weird, and that's bad. You're paid for the placement of this product. The only way you're placing the product is if you had the strategy that made sense with the employer. And you guys have talked about the financial outcomes of your relationship. Like every broker consultant should have a clear conversation about the financial outcomes of the relationship overall and by product.
Yeah, and so it's okay for an employer when you're doing disclosures or for them just to ask, "Hey, Brett, is there anybody else making money on this account? And if so, how and why?"
Yes. And it's not wrong to explain your whole like revenue area. Most brokers are not agency owners. And
Right.
so part of it goes for the broker's time, marketing effort. You're also paying for staff time, technology investment, learning, education, operations, being able to staff that firm will have the appropriate, you know, team level that you need, technology level you need, knowledge. There's a lot you pay for when you're paying for that. So sometimes if you
Oh,
just
yeah.
purely look at the dollars that are being made versus what you're paying in, like it can look a little bit silly at times, but not when you figure out how much staff has to go into a lot of them. Now there are
Right.
heinous, no, there are heinous, egregious compensation levels out there. Some people charge way more than is industry standard or appropriate for the level of work.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what made those decisions for them to charge that much. There may be other contexts that I don't know, but they don't pass the general sniff test. If a regular commission level is 8 to 10% and someone's making 25, like there's some explaining to do for that. Now, maybe they're taking a zero somewhere else and it's offsetting, so now it makes sense, but in and of itself makes no sense at all. Maybe 15 to $18 per employee per month is a regular revenue and someone has $60 baked in there. Now, again, that's really abnormal. So, I mean, we're getting a little off the revenue share part, but
Yeah,
just
but
not
you're getting into how to sniff out if something's
something's
amiss.
not right or something's amiss. You can also get into the are you trying to sell something not because it's a revenue share opportunity, because there's a larger bonus opportunity in there. And then that could simply be a this one is being sold under market compensation for some reason. Like I'd be super weary of someone selling something that's normally at 10% at 2% or 0%, only to know that there's a hidden, back end bonus override non-commission bonus not fees situation coming into it. Now, some of the other egregious things I've seen are when an employee in leadership holds an insurance license at a firm and they're getting paid a kickback for said insurance place for their firm that's going to their personal accounts or their other company accounts.
So it's not coming to the company and they're not just reducing the expense by it.
I mean, anytime anyone says the phrase mailbox money,
Oof.
I hate that phrase.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm talking about personal gain
Yeah,
that's mixed with the fiduciary decisions of a company's health and welfare plan. So first and
it's a huge
foremost,
conflict.
it's a DOL violation, first of all.
Oh, is it
Like,
really?
well, I
Department
mean,
of Labor. We don't use
I mean,
acronyms on this show, remember?
right, because it's an ERISA, which I actually can't tell you the acronym for that, Employee Retirement Income Security Act. I can, yay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fiduciary violation because now someone's taking compensation in turn with a product recommendation, and you've crossed the line of being the good steward for the better good. Now, have you made a decision that is maybe not detrimental or not phallus of the problem for your company? Sure,
And I gave you 2 potential scenarios to address.
go for it.
Scenario 1, I'm the CFO of a company. I am actively involved in the insurance purchasing decision. I'm incredibly knowledgeable. I hold an insurance license, and I ask you to split it with me, but make my portion 0. So essentially bringing the commission down since I'm allegedly taking work off your self. The other scenario I want to pose to you is same setup, and my CEO knows I need a raise, knows I deserve a raise, for whatever reason, cannot give me a raise and says, "Hey, Amanda, take a kickback on the insurance. I won't tell anybody."
I feel like you've brought me to a historical scenario and a present scenario all in one. So, um, let's talk about the CEO or executive, first of all, that has a license and could be compensated. And they want theirs reduced to 0 to essentially provide a company discount.
Yes, that's a much more succinct way of saying that.
Yeah, so I see merit in that conversation. Is there something we're doing internally in our skill set, whether that's financial analysis or maybe human resource related or something, where it is going to take off a percentage of the work of the broker or brokerage's firm's typical duties?
Mhm.
And we want to have a reduction or a discount in the broker services, aka the cost of the insurance at times for said offset of work. Well, let's just have the conversation about what you're getting paid for what you're doing, first of all, regardless of license, and maybe just not throw that murkiness in the water and say, we're going to do some of this internally that would normally be your job.
Mm.
Can we just do your fee a little bit less? That's just a much better, cleaner conversation about not muddying the waters on the situation.
It's just reducing the total fee instead of having some kind of 0 split,
Correct. Now let's say this is
more
around a help.
transparent.
Yeah, let's say
Mhm.
this is around a product that has a fixed commission level that can't be adjusted.
Okay.
Well, now maybe I could see some of that, but now if it's also a non-adjustable product, there has to be revenue being split either from the broker or from the insurance product carrier going to the company, to the person, and that becomes problematic because generally an individual at a company will hold a license, however, the company will not. So the money has to go to the individual, and the individual has to be in the honor system, pay it back. And now it's taken again that whole slippery slope that's going to go awry. Like highly need to avoid work on some kind of we're doing an offset of work for that. Now I've also just simply seen the hey, I'm bringing you this in as a fractional CFO or an HR consultant with an insurance license. I want to bring you into my client. I can't do the work, but you can. And then the long pause for how much are you going to pay me in a revenue share for this introduction?
For the
That
introduction, not for shared labor on decisions.
generally not. Generally, those are arrangements for the introduction and swaying the decision towards you and your product. That
Alright,
is
you
the
said sway,
yep. Yep.
unethical.
Unethical and super problematic, and generally that also brought in said HR consultant or said fractional CFO or accounting firm, they don't know that there's a financial arrangement going around either. Like, I'd be super okay if everyone knew that that was occurring. It is not okay when they don't know what's occurring, and that happens more frequently than it should. Well, I mean, let's take it one step further and talk to another scenario that's been real prevalent over the last decade. Let's talk about the private equity or venture capital firm that owns a brokerage firm and other buys other businesses and starts
Mhm.
moving all the business to their brokerage firm that they may own as well.
And then takes a commission on that and,
It's
ugh.
part I mean, now you're aligning, cross vertical revenues. I mean, this is really nothing other than what Optum and all the other large insurance companies do with their pharmacies and their insurance plans, is it?
No, it's the same.
Okay. So it is ethical, it is legal. You do have to wonder if it's always the best advice and structure. However, when those are done, like one of the great ways to do that is actually just doing it through like a single parent captive or a captive arrangement where the
Mhm.
venture capital firm and all of the different company owners become co-owners of the actual insurance product.
Mhm.
Like now we're making sense. Now it's for the betterment of the whole.
Oh, yeah, I actually like that.
Right. That's not what I generally see. What I generally see is going to a company they own. What I also see is going to a company that their friend owns, one that they don't. Now we're back in the problem of the buddy handshake kickback. Or what's more often, and maybe not nefarious or so, is we take over companies, we're purchasing them, we're getting them in our operations. Our operations, we have a well oiled machine. And for that, we use XYZ payroll and ABC broker and these products that we know work and function well, and everyone works in harmony. The players know how to cooperate, they know the swim lanes, they function well together. Why mess up a good recipe and a good team? Here I'm saying that's not bad.
Yeah.
But there is the referral of that. The downside of it is that sometimes there are financial arrangements being made on those deals to get those things in place originally or keep them going aligned when people start making errors and those relationships get frayed a little bit. This is an area of question. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying it's an area of question. Now, who has the power to question when the new business owner is making the questions and they're the ones making the arrangements and receiving said potential revenue sharing slash kickback slash whatever? I mean, I don't know. It's
And if
murky,
they are the owner,
but
then it may be
they're
they're
not the
not the only
only
owner.
owner. This
Okay,
is the
I see.
problem.
Yeah,
They're generally taking a portion and taking someone else's risk off the table, right? So there's a minority owner that doesn't know that the other, like, this is kind of, this is backstabbing and taking money off of your partner's plate.
right. Do you ever see a scenario where somebody at the highest level tells said person, "Hey, you've got an insurance lesson. We can't bonus you this year, but you should take a cut on the stuff."
Super rare
Okay.
that I've been privy to.
Yeah. That's why I wanna just be super clear that we work with a lot of amazing HR consultants and amazing
Oh,
fractional CFOs.
yeah, no, no. If it wasn't for our HR consultants, fractional CFOs that hop jobs, not hop jobs in a bad way. They just one time runs out and goes to the other, and we work well
Yeah, or the
together.
company gets sold and yeah, we
Yeah. Payroll vendors that send back introductions because they know that we operate in a good and kind way, accounting firms, CPAs. These are all good relationships to have both as a business owner and for us as a consulting firm.
how does a buyer of health insurance sniff out if any of those people are playing in the gray?
It's a very, very hard sniff test. If they are contracted partners, I would again have them have some kind of disclosure with you of all indirect and direct compensation they receive around your firm for their contract. Your HR consultants, CFOs, anyone you're outsourcing that touches the rest of your business, have that compensation disclosure, indirect and direct compensation with them as well. Because
Okay.
again, you're spending money for advice. So anyone you're getting advice for, just have that conversation of which revenue streams are out there so that you make sure that you have alignment from who you're paying for the advice they're giving you for the money to operate on. Like that's just table stakes.
Mhm.
Now, how do you sniff it out when it may be happening? I
Yeah.
mean, someone's going to show their hand if it's happening. Someone's going to be making a call outside of the normal or trying to push a direction when it's not really their call to push a direction. Like, why? Why is someone having a vested interest in it? Now, I have people that have a super vested interest in insurance decisions because they don't want their doctor to change because they have an ongoing health crisis. This is not a financial kickback arrangement. This is a God, healthcare is horrible and these are the big dollar decisions we're making. And they don't want something to happen for them because it's super there. And whatever's happening to them, they're going to perceive will be happening to someone else in the company and they don't want it to go awry and they just have to have it right. Now
I've
that
totally witnessed that, and it affects the entire company's
it
decision.
does.
But it's coming from a place of fear and
Mhm.
not a it's nothing nefarious.
It's nothing nefarious. However, that is the exact same behavior when someone is having their revenue potentially taken away. Now, it could be something where it's completely off the table, unseen, where things are just done kind of in the secret and in the dark and in the shadows.
Mhm.
Like decisions are come to, there wasn't a lot of discussion, and this just made the most sense for the company and, went through HR, financials, accounting, decision makers, and there weren't a lot of decision makers at the table. Erratic behavior, or how did this already get done so fast without any of us knowing? Those are the two things I'd watch for.
Okay. What's the next salacious story?
Well, let's go back to brokers or consultants being paid on either a per script drug fill or as a kickback from the PBM on rebates. Like, I think that
Ugh.
may be the worst one that I've seen is, a broker receiving rebates.
Let me
That's
Okay, I understand per script fill. Somebody goes to CVS, fills a prescription, the broker gets paid. Terrible. What's the
well,
other one?
let me back you up on this.
Okay.
Let's say someone is consulting for the pharmacy benefits and who's the best, like what's the lowest net cost of purchasing because they've done all the evaluations and all the group purchasing organizations, looked at the rebates, looked at the pharmacy, looked at the PBM contracts, and they chose not to be compensated up front for their advice, but to be compensated on a per script fill later based. It's going to be based on performance versus advice up front. Like they've taken the advice and a consulting fee and moved it back into drug fill. Now I don't like it because again, you're higher compensated the sicker people are, or the more attuned they are to filling their maintenance medication adherence. So, I mean, I could see a flat fee for better medication adherence because someone has a vested interest in better communication and processing through it. It's super rare that a broker would have that kind of influence on medication adherence. The icky part is basically a broker consultant being paid on sickness.
Yeah.
That's where I don't like it.
I like the spirit of, hey, you can't afford to pay a big dollar amount up front. Fine, because everything you just talked about is a lot of work. But if people can't afford to pay up front, work out a monthly payment plan or something. Per script basis is yucky.
Correct. And
I put it in would you put it on the front page of the newspaper? Would you tell your grandma? Would you tell your pastor? If any of those answers are you probably shouldn't do it.
I like that litmus test. However, there are totally situations where it makes sense to not pay someone up front and pay them based upon outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, pay for outcomes makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see a scenario where something looks really bad like that, but again, that's not the intent. A year later, 6 months later, 5 years later, when the brokerage firms changed and the new broker's getting it, they haven't said anything about it. Now all of those good intentions have gone awry. This is the theme of the whole process, right?
And how well was it documented initially? And does it continue to be well documented?
And the same people aren't in the decisions that were made back then. Sometimes that's totally what happens. Now, again, the real stranger one to me is the broker consultant that gets paid the rebates or a percentage of the rebates, part of the rebates.
Explain the rebate and how that
Yeah.
works.
So when it comes to drugs, generally brand and specialty drugs, there's more than one drug out there for most conditions. Some of the drugs are left off of a formulary. The ones that are left off generally pay a rebate back to the PBM to get back onto the formulary to reduce the total cost of their drug. So their drug, instead of, and I'll take small dollars so it doesn't seem so egregious, but one drug's $40, the other drug's $80 with a $40 rebate. Now they're the same cost. Like, this is where these things started at way back when. There's a darker side of this because again, that's where the whole rebate game started.
Mm.
There is no one's really chasing $40 rebates. We're talking
Yeah, we're talking about big
$400,
drugs, not thyroid meds, right?
$1,000, correct. $1,000 drugs, $600 drugs, 15, 17, $20,000 per fill drugs, infusion drugs. Like, these are large dollar, financially impacted drugs, generally because they're in rare or more critical, serious conditions, generating rebates. To place a PBM that has a certain payout structure, like the PBM may be keeping part of the rebates, the TPA may be keeping part of the rebates, and in some really weird scenario, the consultant gets a part of the rebates. Like, that's gross. That's
So the
just
TPA,
wrong.
the PBM, and the consultant may all be getting some rebate?
And there's probably a rebate aggregator and a middleman in the process getting a little bit too for going and collecting them all.
No wonder
And
drugs cost so much.
yes. There has been, if you search it this last year, a very large, like hundreds of thousands of dollars to a brokerage firm, maybe that's been out there that got in trouble for one of these things because one broker took it over from the other, and the other broker asked the client, "Did you know this was happening?" And the client said, "Tap those brakes. You got to be kidding me." I don't think that's prevalent.
Okay, good.
Dear God, I hope that's not prevalent. I feel like that is, again, some weird, bad, nefarious arrangement that was done probably either way back in the day when the intentions were pure,
Mm,
or maybe someone saw an opportunistic money opportunity and it just kind of kept happening and people chose to turn a blind eye over time until it gets to the hundreds of thousands versus just, a couple $100 here and there.
yeah, and the lack of transparency is the yuckiest part.
There's that much money coming out of an employer's pocketbook. That's just a problem. How does someone know what's normal to be paid for compensation? Like, this becomes a problem too.
Yeah,
Like, no one generally knows what's normal based upon their employer, their state, their size, the amount and scope of work. And so I would start having those conversations like, what is industry standard? Sometimes as brokers, we don't even have the right knowledge of what is industry standard on everything. Like, we know what we've
sure.
done for 10, 15 years, 5 years, maybe you're a year in the business. You have no idea what industry standard is.
Yeah.
You can look and start sniffing out 5,500 forms. Form 5,500 is the compensation for what you paid for companies with 100 or one people enrolled in a plan. So now you're in a completely blind spot for under 100.
Mhm.
Over 100, you've got that. Then you've got a problem of how fees maybe not in there, not reported correctly. I look at 5,500s regularly, and I know that they're not reporting correctly. There's also questions about how some of the things should be reported, and so not everything shows up correctly. And bonuses, like block bonuses, don't show up on 5,500s. I could tell you I made $20,000 on your account, but because of the size of your account, I got bonused on this other block of insurance, and that bonus could have been 60, 80,000. You know about 20, but I got 80. I mean, there was one insurance carrier that paid a modest under market 4 to 5% standard commission and a 20% override on the back end.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that
So
that
so there's a okay, okay, thank you for
So that is a historical context where that was their business practice, and so you only had to disclose that part. There's not always and there's also generally when you're requesting a quote as a broker for clients, you're asking them for a specific financial arrangement, compensation fee, whatever it is. You're generally specifying it in the quote process, in the request, unless you have just a standard for your firm. Some firms have other arrangements that the broker consultant or that division may not know of, where they've got, several hierarchies of stuff where they have another arrangement with the carrier higher up where there's some other financial override, technology credit, all those things that are maybe they're unaware of. There are chances that there's enough people up and down an organizational scale and having a carrier relationship with a larger organization with that they may not actually know about some of those other indirect roundabout compensation scales. So
okay.
there's reasons someone wouldn't know. There is no reason not to have the conversation up front though. Because again,
Yeah.
the conversation with the broker consultant generally is one that the broker consultant, if they're willing to avoid it, they either are not knowledgeable of it or they feel that there's some uncertainty that they're not working hard enough to own it.
Anything we've missed on this topic?
Co-brokering, referral kickbacks, PNC versus that, outside financial advice, HR advice, payroll. We haven't touched, I mean, I briefly touched on it.
Mhm.
There are some areas where a payroll or a technology vendor will make a percentage or a fee based upon recommendation. I haven't run into any of those. Generally, what I run into is that the technology vendor is charging a tiny, 10, 15-cent fee for something to flow through their data for their work and time. I'm okay with that. It's not bad. Well, this leads me into something else.
Uh-oh.
The one we haven't talked about are performance models, shared savings models, and
Mm.
percentage of savings with no caps. This actually becomes an unethical area for me. So, generally, as a client, you're being advised to either pay a flat PEPM for a solution or service or per
Per
employee
employee per
per
month,
month
thank you.
fee, or a percentage of savings.
Mhm.
From a financial, like running the company operations, the percentage of savings sound great because we're not having to be an outlay for something that doesn't occur. So this event never occurs. We had a solution in case it does. It never occurs. We pay no money. It
But
does occur. It happens. And now you're paying a percentage of the savings. What I see most often, you're paying a percentage of the savings off of the build charges and insurance, which again, most people know no one pays the build charges. You're not being paid the regular negotiated rate to what you paid down. So you're paying a larger differential. And the problem is you end up paying without a cap. There's no financial cap.
yeah.
So the contract generally doesn't say if we had done a per member per month or per employee per month fee, your overall annual spend would have been 20,000. We'll make sure that your percentage of savings cost you no more than 20 or 30,000 because we took on some risk for possibly doing something we didn't. No, there's no cap, and what happens is you end up instead of paying that 20,000, you end up paying a really large percentage of savings that take you into the hundreds, like 2, 3, 4, 5 times what you would have paid in a per person solution fee. So that becomes a bad revenue spend. It is not egregious, but it's unethical on the vendor's part.
Before you go any further, I want you to I think you jumped straight to shared savings 401. Give us shared savings 101. Explain that
Yeah.
$20,000 that you were
Yeah.
mentioning.
So your spine surgery, generally, let's even take North Texas, you're going to end up spending 60 to 85,000 on your PPO negotiated rate at one of your more common high volume, and high volume should be a little bit less rate hospitals with a regular surgeon, all the good stuff. So you're going to say pay that rate. You could also, from a shared savings model, purchase that from somebody that bundles all of those, and that same surgeon, same place, same fee goes from that 85 to $40,000. So now you've got a $45,000 differential in the bill. To get to that arrangement or that bundled arrangement on that surgery, you've got to pay somebody for access to that bundled contract. That bundled contract you could either pay as a flat fee in a PEPM or per employee per month access fee, a flat fee, or shared savings. Shared savings says we took you from 85 to 40. We are going to share in that savings, that $45,000. We would like 20% of that. That's our shared savings model. So that
Okay.
happens once, fine. Happens 2 times, now you have not made the good gamble. 3 or 4 times, now you've lost money over a flat fee.
Yeah. And who decides what the market value of that surgery is? Bill
Generally,
charges?
it's the I mean, it goes back to bill charges, but the only person looking to see what the starting point is the vendor that gets the shared savings. So sometimes they look at the larger differential for their shared savings, which would not be great. Because now they'll look at that PPO that would have been 85, but they'll look at build that were 120 and they'll do shared savings off the 120 build versus the PPO industry standard.
Gotcha.
I find those to be good intentions from we don't want to risk it financially, but bad outcomes over time. So again, keep my theme. Good intentions that enough time and history goes by, they're not working out the way they were intended to. And so it becomes bad. Like
What I'm hearing is ask questions and be bold about it. Don't be afraid to ask and expect transparency from your broker. And there may be some initial, I don't know, they may have to go dig and get more information.
and
But if they
that's
get
okay.
squirrely about it, that's when it should be a red flag.
That's when it should be a red flag. I mean, squirreliness, not wanting to circle back on it with a better answer, just trust me, it's all good. It's so bad. Those are things that should really worry you.
And does it matter the size of the group? Like if I'm a two-person group versus a 200-person group, is the opportunity equal for shadiness?
There is opportunity for shadiness across the board. There is a greater opportunity for shadiness the larger your company is, because there's more revenue that your company can generate for someone. It's really hard to be super shady on a two-person group because a two-person group is generally going to generate less than $700 a year for somebody. Like it's way the work that goes into that for $700,
Right.
it's not enough.
Yeah.
So $700 is great. It's not a small change in the bucket, but $700 for, 20 hours of work is getting rough for a
Yeah. For
margin.
a high performing, high accountable team,
Correct.
that's tough. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, we need to land this plane. Any final advice that you would give to employers on how to sniff out if anything shady is going on?
Have the conversation. I don't even think you have to be bold about it. Just it's time for that annual review. Also, have that conversation outside of renewal.
Ooh, I like that.
Like having that if your renewals on January 1st, have that conversation in July,
Mm.
June, May, because you again can't be having those conversations when you've got 20 other things to deal with that are on fire. So
Yeah.
don't have that conversation like at the end of all the work.
Hmm.
Then have that expectation. Just build the expectation. And if your consultant doesn't build that in for you, just build it in for them. Because again, this is your money, your company. Don't be waiting on your advisor to be the one setting the standards for you. This is your company. You're the fiduciary standard holder, the bearer.
Yeah. That's actually a really good advice just across the board with vendors. So I like your approach to that.
All right. I'm glad you like something today.
Thanks for being here as usual. And thanks for giving us a platform to share with people.
Thank you for hosting. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of the Generous Benefits Podcast. Hopefully, you learned some things from Bret today. Definitely ask questions, look for transparency, and if your broker gets squirrely when you ask, that red flag should go up. Until next time, I'm Amanda Brummitt.